Okay, this time, I think this is the part where we really can see the application of engineering mindset in building your own conceptual framework. So the question that I'd like you to ponder now, what tool can be used in developing and clarifying a conceptual framework? So if you say tool, you might be thinking it's a specific material that you can use or something that is applicable for you to finalize your conceptual framework. And what we're trying to point out here is the concept mapping. Doing a concept map, that's the main tool that you can use in establishing now your own conceptual framework. And concept map, maybe some of your teachers have used this one as a formative assessment. You try to map your ideas, your questions, clarifications, and many other things. And that's a basic skill that we need to establish in formulating your conceptual framework. Now, basic question muna. What is concept mapping? And why do we do this in research? Now, concept mapping, if we go back and trace its historical application, so originally developed by Joseph Novak in 1984, and basically it's applied in science education. That's why maybe you have observed most science books, they represent concepts through ideas or maybe processes. Let's say the cell respiration process, photosynthesis, there's a graphical representation of it, a concept map, so that you can easily understand how the process works inside plants, right? In the photosynthesis process. Now, that's the essence of concept map. A very complicated process can be represented visually so that it can be understood by your readers. Have that mindset also in terms of applying concept mapping in your research study to establish your conceptual framework. And according to Chang, it's an attempt to make explicit such a mental model so that it can be reviewed with others. We're dealing with models here. Basic models, perhaps, that you would like to look at your study, the theories involved, how they are connected. And if you will be a data scientist later on, this is, well, I would say this is the most basic way for you to look at models, aside from numbers, because you will be generating visuals so that your reader will understand the whole context, the whole intention of your study. And there's a need also to invest. So you're building now and you are creating. Now, why apply concept mapping in building a theory? Why not just words? There are other research articles that will just give you a paragraph or a full page, 2-page, 3-page conceptual framework discussing all the theories involved. Why? Well, a picture of what the theory says is going on with the phenomena you're trying to study will be understandable and will be somehow a better way of making your readers appreciate your work. Imagine mo naman kung full page yan, babasahin, edi parang wala bang ibang paraan para mas madalian natin? And we call that the concept map of a theory. So it's a very specific term, concept map of a theory, because when you just say concept map, just like what you see right now, that's a concept map. But we need to focus on the theory involved with this concept map. So reasons for creating a concept map: to pull together and make visible what your implicit theory is, or to clarify an existing theory. That it's also essential that you become conscious with icons or illustrations that you use, like arrows pointing towards right, up, down, or a broken line or a solid line, and so on, because this can have an interpretation and will provide meaning to your conceptual framework. Now, what is not a concept map of a theory? So maybe you have, maybe the one in the textbook, that's a concept map of a theory. But let's try to see the negative of this. So concept map of a theory does not depict the study itself, nor specific part of a research design or proposal. Rather, it's a tool for developing and presenting the conceptual framework for your design. The point here is, you might be thinking of the concept map of a theory as a representation of the whole method section only. No, because I have encountered students last year that their conceptual framework is just a representation of the research design without the theories at all. Then that's also that needs improvement. At least certain segment or part of the totality of the conceptual framework was established in their paper, but they weren't able to establish the theory, so that's a weak conceptual framework. So make sure that you integrate all the necessary details, necessary elements for you to come up with a good conceptual framework. Now, so here are some examples. So I'd like to show you some templates. They're not very what do you call this one? they're not prescriptive, but you view it as a framework. When I say framework, it's a guide. So you can make some adjustments depending on the nature of your study. So I'd like to show you some templates for conceptual framework. The first one, we call it the social determinants framework. The second one, you have sequential framework. And the third one, the overlapping domains framework. So for the social determinants framework, it has this kind of, this one, you can see here, the illustration. So this is the main like template. So the social determinants framework shows nested circles. So from inner, outer, and so on. Then you have an arrow pointing to the outcome. So this is well suited for most generally explanatory models. So an example. So what factors are associated with the outcome? Y. So X, Y, and so on. So you can use this one. An example of this study, you have this coming from a study conducted by Laser, Nystrom, and others. So about community perceptions of intimate partner violence. So a qualitative study. So you can see here the framework. This is what I'm telling you, that it should not be viewed in a very prescriptive manner or dogmatic manner. Whatever has been shown in the illustration, that should be explicitly considered. No, but the whole process itself. So the totality. So you have circles here, then arrows. So you can see here, and there the outcome. The second one, we have a sequential framework. It demonstrates causal pathways, hypothesized and measured between an exposure and an outcome. So a sequential framework is helpful when your research question is testing for a specific hypothesis, like, is X associated with Y? And you can have this template, and you have the outcome. And here is an example of sequential framework here. Okay, so you can see different variables, theories involved, and that's it. The third one, we call it the overlapping domains. It's like a Venn diagram. Okay, so the overlapping part, so it pertains to the commonalities of all the variables or the domains involved. So an overlapping domains framework shows how multiple factors must occur simultaneously for an outcome to happen or to occur. Now, this is useful when you are testing a hypothesis about an interaction. So here's an example. Does Y occur when X and Z are both present? And for a general explanatory model where the covariates do not share a hierarchical or embedded relationship. Covariates meaning there's one variable that you are trying to study, and then you found out that there's one variable that can affect that variable. So that's covariate. Then here, so you can see now overlapping domains. So from hospital, shelter. So this is a study understanding transitions in care from hospital to homeless shelter. Then here are some examples. So study of Newfoundland principles craft knowledge. And another example of conceptual framework. But my expectation with your output, aside from the concept map, you also need to have an explanation. But make sure that it's comprehensive enough to represent the concept map. Not just a one-liner or two-liner, two-sentence explanation. You need to explain clearly the concept behind your work. And another example here. Very complicated, right? Because these are the factors involved in the study. And that's it. So I hope that you were enlightened by all the templates that you can use and adapt for your study, and make sure that you make it very, I wouldn't say complicated or too sophisticated, but the goal of having these templates is for your reader to understand clearly the theories behind your study.